Welcome to Fluentora Podcast. Real speaking, real fluency.
Hello, and welcome to the Fluentora Podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Leo. Good to have you with us again.
Leo, I want to start today with a true story. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
In broad daylight, no mask. But he wasn't worried about the security cameras, because before he walked in, he covered his face in lemon juice.
Lemon juice? Why?
He knew that lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. You write with it on paper, and the words don't appear until you heat the paper. So he reasoned, if lemon juice makes writing invisible, it will make my face invisible too, to the cameras.
That is completely wrong. That's not how any of that works.
Completely wrong, and confident about it. The police broadcast the security footage on the local news that same night. He was arrested before midnight, and when they told him how they caught him, he reportedly said, "But I wore the juice."
He genuinely believed it, right until the moment they arrested him.
That's exactly it. And that story is actually where our topic today comes from. 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, heard about this case, and it made them curious about something bigger. Why do people with very little knowledge or skill often feel more confident than people who actually know what they're doing?
That does sound familiar, actually.
I think it will sound familiar to a lot of people listening. Today, we're exploring the Dunning-Kruger Effect, what it is, why it happens, and importantly, what it means for how we work, lead, and give each other feedback.
This is episode 8 for intermediate learners. B1, B2. We'll use some genuinely useful vocabulary today. Words like cognitive bias, blind spot, overconfidence. And we'll hear them the way people actually use them in conversation, not just as a list to memorize.
And there's a free lesson plan to go with this episode. The full vocabulary, a reading, a grammar section, and reflection questions. Links in the description at fluentora.com.
All right, Emma, let's talk about confidence and when it goes wrong.
Actually, Leo, before I explain the psychology, can I ask you something personal?
Go for it.
Has there ever been a moment where you felt very confident about something, a skill, a subject, and then later realized you actually knew much less than you thought?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, a few years ago, I decided I was good at public speaking. I'd given a couple of presentations that went well. People were polite, nobody fell asleep. So I thought, I've got this. I'm a natural.
And then?
And then I gave a talk to a much bigger audience, actual experts in the room, and it was rough. I rambled, I didn't answer questions well. Afterward, someone gave me real feedback. Honestly, and it was humbling. I realized I hadn't actually developed the skill. I just had a little beginner's luck.
That is a perfect example of what we're talking about today. What you experienced has a name. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's a type of cognitive bias. That means a kind of consistent, predictable error in how our brain processes information and makes judgments, where people with limited knowledge or skill in something tend to overestimate their own ability. To overestimate means to think something is bigger or better or higher than it really is.
So when I thought I was a natural public speaker after just 2 easy presentations, I was overestimating my competence, my actual skill level.
Exactly. And here's the part that makes it so interesting and a little uncomfortable. Dunning and Kruger ran a study in 1999 at Cornell University. They tested people on skills like grammar and logic, and then asked participants to rate their own performance compared to everyone else.
What did they find?
The people who scored the lowest, genuinely in the bottom of the group, consistently rated themselves as above average, not just a little above average, significantly above average.
That's strange, though. Why would someone with low ability be more confident, not less?
This is the key insight, and it's sometimes called the double curse. To recognize that you're bad at something, you actually need a certain amount of skill and knowledge in that area. So if you don't have that skill, you also don't have the tool you need to see your own incompetence, your own lack of ability. So it's not that people are lying about how good they are. They genuinely don't have the awareness to see the gap. Exactly. Self-awareness, recognizing your own limits accurately, actually requires some of the very expertise you're missing. That's the trap. When I gave that big talk, I didn't know enough about public speaking to know what I was doing wrong. I just thought it was going fine. Right up until the feedback showed you otherwise.
There's a way to visualize this that I think makes it click. Imagine a graph. On one side, the horizontal line, we have your actual knowledge or competence, how much you really know about something, growing from 0 to expert. On the other side, the vertical line, we have your confidence.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When you know almost nothing about a subject, your confidence should be low, right? But it isn't. As soon as you learn just a little bit, a few basic facts, your confidence shoots up fast. Some people call this peak Mount Stupid. You know just enough to feel like an expert, but not enough to see how much you don't know.
Mount Stupid? That's a great name for it.
It is. Then something happens if you keep learning. You start to see the real complexity of the subject, how much there actually is to know, and your confidence crashes. This part of the graph is sometimes called the Valley of Despair. You know more than you did, but you feel worse because now you can finally see the size of the gap.
That happened to me too, actually, after that talk. For weeks, I felt like I was terrible at public speaking, worse than before I started.
That's the Valley of Despair. But here's the hopeful part. If you don't give up, if you keep learning, keep practicing, keep asking for feedback, your confidence slowly climbs back up. Not as fast as it fell, but steadily. This part is called the slope of enlightenment. And eventually, if you reach real expertise, your confidence becomes grounded, realistic, based on actual competence, not guesswork.
So the graph isn't really warning us that confidence is bad. It's warning us that early confidence, before you've done the work, is unreliable.
Beautifully put. And it flips at the other end, too. Genuine experts often show real humility about their abilities. Humility meaning a modest, realistic view of your own importance or skill. Not because they lack confidence, but because they truly understand how much there still is to learn. The more you know, the more clearly you can see the edges of your own knowledge.
So the confident beginner and the humble expert can sound completely different, but the expert is usually right and the beginner is usually wrong.
Which creates a real problem. Because in daily life, in meetings, in arguments, confidence is often mistaken for competence. People trust the person who sounds sure, not necessarily the person who is correct.
Is this just an individual thing, or does it show up in patterns across whole groups of people? Huge patterns, actually. Here's a statistic I love. Research shows that 93% of American drivers believe they are above average behind the wheel.
But that's mathematically impossible. Only half of drivers can be above average. That's what average means.
Exactly the response Dunning-Kruger would want. Statistically, that number should be close to 50%. Instead, it's 93%.
Does that number stay the same everywhere, or does it change by country?
It actually shifts quite a bit. In Sweden, for example, the number is lower. Around 69% of Swedish drivers say they're above average. Still too high statistically, but noticeably more modest than the American figure.
So culture plays a role in how much people overestimate themselves?
It seems to. And Japan gives us a fascinating contrast. In general, research suggests people in Japan tend to underestimate their abilities, the opposite direction, partly as a cultural strategy. Seeing yourself as still improving rather than already accomplished is often viewed as a sign of humility and respect, not weakness.
So overconfidence, genuinely believing you're better than the evidence supports, isn't just a personal flaw. It can be shaped by what a culture rewards and admires.
That's a really important point, and it raises the question from our lesson's warm-up. Is overestimating yourself always harmful? Sometimes a little unwarranted confidence helps someone take a risk they needed to take. Start a business, ask for a promotion, try something new. The danger is when that confidence is never checked against reality, when there's no honest feedback, no moment of accountability.
Which brings us to somewhere this really matters: the workplace and leadership.
Exactly where we're headed next.
Let's talk about what happens when the Dunning-Kruger effect shows up not in one person, but in an entire company's leadership. Our first story, Blockbuster and Netflix.
I remember Blockbuster. The video rental stores, they were everywhere.
Everywhere. Massive company, dominant in their market. In the year 2000, a small startup called Netflix, which at the time mailed DVDs to people's homes, approached Blockbuster with an offer. Netflix would run Blockbuster's growing online business, and in exchange, Blockbuster could acquire, meaning buy, Netflix for around $50 million.
$50 million? Netflix is worth an almost unimaginable amount today.
Hundreds of billions. But at the time, Blockbuster's leadership turned the offer down. They were confident their brick-and-mortar model, physical stores, customers walking in, was simply unbeatable. They saw Netflix's online mail order idea as a niche curiosity, not a real threat.
So that's a strategic misstep? A bad decision in business strategy that leads to serious negative consequences?
A textbook one. And notice, this wasn't a decision made by unintelligent people. Blockbuster's leadership had real business experience, real expertise. But the confidence in their existing, familiar model became a kind of blind spot, an area of weakness they genuinely couldn't see in themselves, because their whole identity and success were built on that old model.
It's almost the leadership version of Mount Stupid, except it's Mount Success instead. Past success makes you more confident that your current approach is right, even as the world changes underneath you.
That's an excellent way to put it. Their assumption, the belief they accepted as true without real proof, was that customer habits wouldn't fundamentally change. That turned out to be a deeply flawed assumption, an idea that seemed reasonable but contained a fundamental error. What eventually happened to Blockbuster? They filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Netflix, meanwhile, became one of the most valuable entertainment companies in the world.
So the lesson isn't really about video rental stores. It's about how confidence in what used to work can stop you from honestly evaluating new information.
That's precisely the danger. And it connects to something we'll return to, the importance of dissent, allowing disagreement and challenge inside an organization, rather than everyone simply agreeing with confident leadership.
Our second story is more recent, and it's a very different shape of failure. Blockbuster was slow, a gradual decline over years. This one is sudden and dramatic, the collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX in 2022.
I remember this being huge news.
Massive news. FTX was, for a time, one of the most trusted names in the cryptocurrency industry. Its founder was seen as a brilliant, almost unstoppable figure in the business world. Publicly, there was unwavering, meaning complete, unshaken, confidence in the company's financial stability and its risk management.
But that confidence turned out to be misplaced?
catastrophically so. Within a matter of days, FTX collapsed and billions of dollars in customer funds were lost. Investigations afterward pointed to serious failures in the company's financial controls and governance, the systems that are supposed to keep a company honest and accountable.
So this wasn't really about the underlying technology or the market. It was about overconfidence and excessive belief in one's own judgment and abilities, beyond what the evidence actually supported, inside the leadership.
That's the pattern researchers point to. When leaders have extremely high confidence in their own judgment, it can lead them to dismiss, meaning reject or ignore, critical feedback from the people around them. And here's a number that really stayed with me from the research behind this lesson. Only 24% of employees feel that their leaders consistently encourage and acknowledge suggestions for improvement.
Only a quarter. So 3 out of 4 employees don't feel safe or welcomed bringing up concerns to leadership?
Which brings in a term that's genuinely important here: psychological safety. That means an environment where people feel safe to speak up, disagree, or take a risk, like raising a concern, without fear of punishment or embarrassment. Without that safety, even employees who do notice a blind spot often stay quiet.
So it's not only about one overconfident leader, it's also about a culture where dissent, disagreeing with the people in charge, feels too dangerous to express.
Exactly. Vital information. The warnings, the doubts, the "wait, are we sure about this" moments gets lost, not because no one saw the problem, but because no one felt able to say so out loud.
And I imagine this affects more than just one bad decision. If people stop speaking up altogether,
It damages the whole organization over time. Research shows that managers account for a striking amount of the difference in employee engagement. Engagement, meaning how emotionally connected and invested people feel in their work, across a company. When leadership feels unapproachable or dismissive, engagement drops sharply, and that directly hurts productivity, the amount of valuable work actually getting done.
so we've seen 2 very different failures. Blockbuster's slow blindness to a changing market, and FTX's sudden collapse from overconfident, unchecked decision-making. Different speed, same root cause.
Same root cause. And I'll mention briefly, this pattern isn't limited to just these 2. We've seen echoes of it in Meta's enormous, so far uncertain, investment in the metaverse, and in Peloton's aggressive overexpansion during the pandemic, which led to significant financial losses once demand slowed. Different industries, same trap. Confidence that outran the evidence.
It's honestly a little unsettling how consistently this shows up.
It is, which is exactly why the antidote matters so much. Self-awareness, honest feedback, and the humility to ask, what am I missing?
Let's take a short grammar break, because these ideas we've been discussing actually give us perfect examples for a tricky area of English: quantifiers. Words like much, many, few, little, and enough.
This is one I still think about, honestly. Few and a few trip me up sometimes.
You're not alone. It's a common challenge, even at this level. Let's start with the basic split. We use much with uncountable nouns, things we don't count individually, like evidence or confidence or information. We use many with countable nouns, things we can count, like leaders or mistakes or employees.
So I could say there isn't much evidence that overconfidence is declining. Evidence, uncountable, so much.
Exactly right. And countable? How many executives genuinely assess their own blind spots? Executives, countable, so many.
Okay, now the tricky part. Few versus a few and little versus a little.
Here's the key distinction, and it's really about feeling, not just grammar. Few and little, without the A, have a negative feeling. They mean not enough, almost a warning. A few and a little, with the A, have a positive feeling. They mean some, and that's actually useful.
So if I say few leaders welcome dissent openly, that sounds like a criticism? Like concerningly few?
Exactly the right reading. Now, compare. A few strategies can help leaders avoid this trap. That sounds helpful. Some solutions exist, and that's good news.
And the same pattern with little and a little? Like, he showed little humility. Sounds like a real criticism.
A real criticism. Worrying, even. But with a little self-reflection, things can improve. Sounds encouraging. Same word, opposite emotional weight, just because of that small article A.
Let me try one about myself. Honestly, I have little experience leading a large team, but I have a little confidence that I could learn quickly.
Perfect use of both. And notice how naturally that captures something true and human. You're not pretending to be an expert, but you're not hopeless either.
And enough. That one works for both types, right? Countable and uncountable?
Correct. Enough is flexible. There isn't enough data to support that decision. Uncountable. The team didn't have enough time to challenge the decision before it was announced. Also fits both patterns depending on the noun. Enough simply means sufficient, as much as is needed.
So, much and many for large amounts, few and little for not enough, a few and a little for some, and that's good, and enough for just the right amount.
Perfectly summarized. These are exactly the kind of words in your free lesson plan's grammar section, with more practice if you want to go deeper.
Now it's your turn to think and speak. We'll ask a question and then pause, give a full, extended answer out loud, with reasons and examples if you can. These questions come directly from your free lesson plan.
Take your time. There's no rush, and there's no wrong answer here. Only honest or dishonest ones.
Question 1. Think about a time you felt very confident about a skill or subject, and later realized you knew much less than you thought. What happened, and how did it change your approach? Question 1. Think about a time you felt very confident about a skill or subject, and later realized you knew much less than you thought. What happened, and how did it change your approach? Question 1. Think about a time you felt very confident about a skill or subject, and later realized you knew much less than you thought. What happened, and how did it change your approach?
Question 2. Can you think of a time you noticed someone who was very confident but clearly wrong about something important? How did you or the people around you react, and what made it difficult to challenge them? Question 2. Can you think of a time you noticed someone who was very confident but clearly wrong about something important? How did you or the people around you react, and what made it difficult to challenge them? Question 2. Can you think of a time you noticed someone who was very confident but clearly wrong about something important? How did you or the people around you react, and what made it difficult to challenge them?
Question 3. In your own opinion, where is the line between healthy self-confidence and dangerous overconfidence, especially in a manager or a leader? Question 3. In your own opinion, where is the line between healthy self-confidence and dangerous overconfidence, especially in a manager or a leader? Question 3. In your own opinion, where is the line between healthy self-confidence and dangerous overconfidence, especially in a manager or a leader?
Question 4. If your manager asked you for honest feedback about a decision you thought was wrong, would you feel comfortable giving it? What makes it so difficult to tell someone in authority that they might be making a mistake? Question 4. If your manager asked you for honest feedback about a decision you thought was wrong, would you feel comfortable giving it? What makes it so difficult to tell someone in authority that they might be making a mistake? Question 4. If your manager asked you for honest feedback about a decision you thought was wrong, would you feel comfortable giving it? What makes it so difficult to tell someone in authority that they might be making a mistake?
These are genuinely rich questions, the kind worth discussing with a colleague, a friend, or your Fluentora teacher. They're also the foundation of the homework task in your lesson plan, a short-written personal competence audit where you reflect honestly on one area where you might be overestimating yourself.
I'll admit,
After telling that public speaking story earlier, I already know what I'd write about.
That's exactly the spirit of it.
So, Emma, after everything we've covered today, what's the one thing you'd want someone to remember?
That confidence and competence are not the same thing, and the gap between them is exactly where the danger lives. The goal isn't to have less confidence, it's to make sure your confidence is actually grounded in real awareness, real feedback, real evidence.
And maybe to stay a little suspicious of moments when everything feels obvious and easy. That might be Mount Stupid, not mastery.
Exactly. I want to leave you with something. Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Socrates said, "I know that I am intelligent, because I know that I know nothing." That's not false modesty. It's actually one of the most confident, self-aware statements a person can make, because it comes from someone who has thought deeply enough to see the size of what he doesn't know.
That's a genuinely good note to end on.
Thank you for thinking this through with us today.
And for practicing your English while you did it.
A few things before we go. First, download your free Confidence Trap lesson plan at fluentora.com. You'll find the full vocabulary list, a reading with more detail on these case studies, a listening exercise, and space to write your own personal competence audit.
Second, if you'd like to talk through these ideas with a real teacher, book a free trial lesson at fluentora.com. It's a great way to practice using today's vocabulary in a live conversation.
And third, we genuinely love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, have you ever caught yourself on Mount Stupid? We read every comment.
Please subscribe and share this episode with a manager, a colleague, or anyone who values honest self-reflection.
Speak fluent English, build a confident tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for watching.